Okay, here we go. Flight 5. So, this one, really nice launch, super steady off the top. I was able to take advantage of this newly refinished launch pad on top of Eliminator here. Big shout out to Willie and the local crew up in Santa Barbra. Really finished out what used to be, at least when I've been flying it recently, just a rocky, kind of sketchy takeoff. And now with this rain and the dirt and soil they've brought in, it's really a nice, packed, rounded off, really like professional, world-class looking launch. So super thankful for that. So here I am, flying out, super smooth launch, really smooth air today. I was really excited with the air, just able to kind of glide through. Kind of felt really reminiscent of my first hang gliding flight ever, where just, felt like I was just like, for lack of a better word, floating around in like buttery type substance. It's kind of like a powdery feel where it's just not fighting a whole lot. There's a couple times here where I'm going to one side or the other, getting like right here, getting a little bit of like crosswind type action or something like that, but nothing too bad. And so just really excited with that, able to have a super enjoyable flight because of that. The biggest problem with this flight, and we can now start to see it here, is I'm starting to come up on the antennas and seeing that ridge where the roundhouse and the antenna farm are and those power poles down below me. Is I had a lot of sink on this flight. I didn't get a ton of lift coming out here, and so I think this is actually the lowest I've ever crossed over the power lines, and hopefully the lowest it'll ever cross over the power lines again, because it was pretty sketchy. I'm looking down at these things, I'm like, okay, like those seem pretty close. You see me flying over here, and I'm like, wow, like, yeah, I was pretty close to those. Didn't love that. And so I'm looking out at the roundhouse. I'm like, man, I really want to soar on some thermals today. There's like a million paragliders in the air. You can see them up there, just kind of in the like left upper section. And I'm just thinking to myself, I got to get there. I got to get on those thermals. It's going to be sweet. And I don't. I'm still low. Going out towards the roundhouse. I'm like, crap, like what's going on? One thing I realized, well, I knew before I launched, I just was lazy and didn't want to redo it, is I didn't have the battens in the right sides. Not a huge deal. I mean, they're all the same length, the same size, but I think they shape a little bit to the wing itself. And so maybe a little bit of a lost efficiency there. I don't think it was a huge contributing factor. Willie used the saying, you ever go through town and hit all the red lights? That's kind of the experience that I think I had on this flight. Just got unlucky, little swirling eddies of wind and whatnot. And as a result, just didn't get any lift. And if anything, got a little bit of sink on my initial flight out to the ridge here. And as a result, just ended up really low and couldn't really do much with it. So at this point, I'm like, yeah, definitely not getting to the antenna farm. I'm hopefully not flying too close to the roundhouse. We're supposed to say a couple hundred feet above it. And if we do go below that, we're supposed to be a couple hundred feet away from it. And I just kind of had to get closer than I was comfortable with, and I probably closer than the soaring community in Santa Barbara would be comfortable with. So felt bad about that, but at the same time, not a whole lot I could do because I didn't want to turn down into the valley, because then that could potentially invite more sink as I get away from this ridge. Just really wanted to get to this ridge. There's definitely like a little bit of lift here. Not a ton. I'm still trying to feel around for it here. Don't feel a whole lot going on. And so, gotta just book it home, pull hard right, get back on that ridge track, and just kind of start thinking about what my landing options are gonna look like. I got pretty good height overall, see my shadow way down there. Love seeing the shadow, gives a really good perspective always for me, just, seeing how small I am and just seeing just kind of my actual speed over ground, which I'm not gonna include in this video. I've had a little bit of trouble exporting, and it's just more of an annoyance. Let me know in the comments down below if you would be interested in seeing GPS speed on future video uploads. Not a huge deal for me to add. I just thought it kind of cluttered it up a little bit. Also trying something new here, obviously, with the face side by side, partly because of the aspect ratio that I've filmed this in. And yeah, trying something new. Didn't get a whole lot of lift here. Yeah, so just a couple of new things trying out here. And yeah, beautiful day up here in Santa Barbara. A little bit cloudy, and normally I wouldn't mind the clouds, but for hang gliding, paragliding, anything where you don't have a motor, you really want thermal action, and clouds limit the amount of energy from the sun that hits the surface of the earth, which reduces the amount of thermal lift that you get. And that is kind of what I experienced personally. Obviously, there was still good thermal action today, and I just wasn't getting to those spots. But overall, I wasn't aided by the clouds, although it does make for really nice lighting, I will say. And so coming down now, I'm feeling like I'm a little bit low. I'm looking over there at Parma, the park where I want to land. I'm like, yeah, I think I'll make it to the park, but I'm starting to realize now that maybe my best option isn't to go for the pattern that I'm normally used to, where I circle over to the right of where we're looking right now and circle counterclockwise above the park and come down. I'm starting to think I might have to go to the left of the park and circle clockwise for my downwind base and final legs. I haven't fully committed to that at this point yet, but as we'll see here in the next few minutes, I eventually do. And I think it turned out for the better, but hard to say, just a novice trying to pick things up. Talking to Willie afterwards, he thought that I did make the correct decision. He got on the radio at least once during this flight and said, hey, you're pretty low. I realized I was low, which was good. I felt, excited that I was starting to recognize those signs and be aware of like what's around me. But definitely not what you want to hear. You don't want to be low if you're doing some gliding sport. You want to be higher. You want to have extra energy to work with, extra kinetic energy, either in speed or potential energy excess in altitude. And I did not have either of those on this particular flight. So yeah, cruising in here, I'm like looking at these mansions, and I'm used to, and you'll see in previous videos, I'm close to the mansions, but it's a different perspective. I'm looking down on them. I'm not like looking kind of like at a 30-degree angle into their windows, or at least I don't have that vantage point. And on this particular flight, I'm like, oh yeah, like I can see like a little bit more into them than I'm used to. And so that means I'm lower. And it definitely felt lower. It wasn't like I needed like an altimeter to tell me that. It was like very apparent in the moment, like, yes, I am lower than I have been previously, and it's not where I want to be coming up for this. And so, in the back of my head, I'm like, okay, like, do I have to go to like one of these alternative landing sites? What's the situation there? And if you watch my next video, my hang gliding flight number 6, I actually am even lower and have those thoughts racing even more. And for that one, I filmed my reaction right after, just because that was like a real adrenaline plump. This flight itself, and I bring that up not only to bait the watch through of the next video, but this flight itself was pretty boring, I'm gonna be honest. I mean, I still had a great time, super glad to be up there, but the whole time I was like, dang, no thermals, nothing super exciting happened until now, coming in for the final approach. Really happy with everything except for the very last execution of the flare, and I forgot one critical element, which was letting my hands rest. Before I did that flare, I should let my hands rest. I'm up way too high. I look down, you can see my legs flailing. I'm like, shoot, like I'm gonna die. I don't know how high I actually was, but it felt like 15 or 20 feet. Reality is probably like 10 feet. And what I should have done there is I should have just held my arms up and held the flare, and then I could have kind of like dropped down like an umbrella off a picnic table, as we like to say, and I like that analogy as well. But I didn't. I kind of relaxed or pulled in a little bit, and that created a little bit of extra falling speed. Just didn't use like the glider itself as like a parachute, and hit the ground pretty hard. My back's a little bit sore. I'm filming this at 8:34 p.m. This flight was at like 12:30. So obviously it didn't like have any major injury as far as I can tell yet, just because I'm feeling fine. But my back is definitely sore. Feels like I was in like a minor car crash, and I kind of was in some ways. But yeah, just really thankful that nothing worse happened. And that's the good news about hang gliding, is you can make a ton of mistakes and still walk away from things, just because it is such a redundant system, and there's so many natural built-in safety features of modern glider technology that really make it pretty forgiving. But yeah, just kind of took a moment to collect myself here. Yeah, definitely a rough landing. Thanks for watching. Let me know if you have any suggestions of stuff you'd like to see that I did better in previous videos. If you hate me doing this like vlog style thing on the side, like let me know. I can just switch back to audio, or we can roll in silence or music. But cheers, have a good one.